Okay, everyone, it's 5 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please, stand and join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's good to see everybody here. At this time, we will go ahead and have our opening public comment time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes per person. And begin by stating your name and where you live for the record. And is there anybody in the room that has public comment? We'll start with the room first. I do. Go ahead.
My name is David McKinley. I live at 105 Acre Road in Dayton. I am 67 years old. I've lived in Columbia County virtually all my life. And I've got to say that I have never been as concerned about an elected public official as I am with you, Seth Clement. Your conduct at last month's meeting, I thought was terribly unprofessional. I thought that you were very disrespectful to both Jenny Dickinson and Mike Spring, and I think you owe them an apology. Okay? Also, I believe that you and Johnny Watts are members of the Columbia County Conservatives. I have to ask myself, do you and Johnny, if you and Johnny are able to represent the whole county or just the political agenda of the CCC? I would like to know that sometime. Seth, you have stated, and I quote, "I will absolutely vote no on any and every measure that will increase my taxes by any amount," end quote. I think that's a very short-sighted position to take, to basically vote no before you even know what we're talking about. Okay? You have referred to Dayton as a corrupt and dirty little town. You scolded the voters of Columbia County for passing the 2 school levies. You signed the petition to close our one public library. I could go on, but I think I've made my point. That I believe that your behavior is unacceptable to serve on this board, and I would like to ask for your resignation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room have any public comment they'd like to share?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Julia Mead, 230 Mead Road, Dayton, Washington. I'm a transplant, but I've been here over 41 years. And it saddened me to have someone who has had the best interest of Columbia County in her mind and in her heart be attacked so personally. The information that you shared publicly, I believe, was very inappropriate. Rude. And I don't know what you foresee for our future if you don't have someone who wants to do this long term. Okay, you have reduced Jenny's time here, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Per day? Is she per week? How is Jenny's, what is Jenny's contract now?
Jenny's not under a contract.
Okay, so at any time she could leave us and leave a mess. Is that correct? Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Fair statement? Okay. I think it was terribly rude. I agree with you, David. I think you need to resign. Seriously, I think you've wounded our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to say something. Skip Mead, lifelong farmer resident. I happen to be 66 years old. And I gotta say that I am embarrassed by what I saw. My dad was on the port with Gene Turner when they brought in the marina. There was a lot of baggage involved in bringing in the marina, which turned out being a very successful, albeit a lot of work. And in the meantime, I'm pretty sure Gene was working under a contract. Jenny and I may not agree on things, but one thing she does is she consensus builds. She will work with people through and through, and we disagree, and there have been things that have come and gone. She has successes under her belt. The comments made by you coming out of executive session, I can't even imagine. I've been on several boards, 35 years on a conservation district board. I can't imagine how that went, that you would come out and do that. I believe in Mike Springs saying that this should be treated more like a business, and her being a contract worker will give continuity to it, and it won't leave a mess, and you think it's just fine if she left and you had a mess. I disagree wholeheartedly. Another thing, Johnny Watts, I'm disappointed in you. I'll leave it. I've known you. I don't know Seth Bryan from anybody, but I'm disappointed, Johnny, that you didn't have a little more community back in you, other than your CCC. I'm disappointed. And so I will ask you for your resignation also. And who is it that's laughing when we ask for that? Can I have a show? That's fine. Now I know who's laughing. But you embarrass Columbia County, and we aren't here to be embarrassed like that. We have a lot more pride than that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something without coming in the room and violating the fire orders. I'm Don Hicks. I've lived in Dayton for about 20 years and, okay. And bottom line, I want to see you gone. Gone. That's no way to treat somebody that's done so much good for this community. With your buddy, gone. That's all I got to say.
Who's next?
Dave Harvey, I rent 3, 4, and 5 in the industrial complex here. I also rent Unit J down at Blue Mountain Station. This isn't good for business. What you've done is not good for business. At least try to make some sort of amends. Try to apologize. It's not good for the community. It's not good for business. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody else in the room? Anybody on Zoom have any comments?
My name is Pete Polino, live in Dayton, Washington. And hear a lot of negativity here for a community that's trying to bring in a bunch of economic development. And as far as the contract goes, I would like to know who drew up the contract. I know who brought it in when I watched TV, but I don't know who drew it up, and I'd like to know that.
The original contract, I believe, was predecessors to everybody here.
Okay, in real life, I don't believe anybody else in here has a contract to work. I work and I don't have a contract to work. It's right to work state. I don't see the problem unless there is a problem with an employee, and then you can't take action because they have a contract that protects them from wrongdoing. I don't see the problem. It's just, at will or work. So anyways, the problem is there's two sides. This country's very divided. This community is divided, and it shouldn't be. People should work together. You can have a lot of comments on who did what, but I don't see anybody trying to fix it. Telling somebody you want their resignation doesn't fix this problem. Talk to them, fix it, get it ironed out. That's how it's done.
Thank you. Any other comments, either in the room, in the building, or on Zoom?
Hi, this is Amy Rosenberg. I live in Dayton. I've been here for about 12 years, so I'm a relative newcomer for everybody else that's spoken tonight. I just want to express that I've worked with Jenny on, a few committees and projects, and I am continuously impressed by her. She's smart. She knows how to get things done, and is dedicated to this community. I don't think that we could do better for a port commissioner. I think we're extremely lucky to have Jenny, and that's all.
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is Vicky Zoller,
Here we go.
Dayton, Washington. The person laughing is Seth Bryan's wife. It's a completely disrespectful way to treat people in that meeting who have every right to express themselves in whatever way they want. And for Jessica Ruffcorn to sit there in the front row, because we can see her on the owl, who's supposed to be a reporter for a newspaper and unbiased, to smirk and laugh is completely unprofessional. If you want to know why things are so divided, they might want to start looking at their own behavior and how they have been dealing with things and how they've treated people. How Jenny was treated in that last meeting was something that no one should have had to see. Completely unprofessional, rude, unkind, and something that should have been done in private. And I'm just wondering if any of that you had to say about her insubordination or her unprofessional behavior in a meeting is actually in her employee record, or if that was just something that you felt you had a right to blurt out in a meeting. You really need to get your act together, Seth. You are a lot of the division that is going on in this county. The things that you have said, that Blue Mountain Station needs to be torn down, that this is a dirty and corrupt little town, that the port needs to be defunded. I mean, none of those are words that speak to improving or bringing anything good to this community. All it is destruction. That's all you know how to do. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, Veronica, I live in Dayton. Unlike most of you in the room, I am a new generation. I can't say I've lived in Dayton for 40 years because I haven't lived that long. But I have lived in Dayton for years and I intend on staying for many more. I want to talk about the reason for a contract. Yes, a lot of us work without contracts. However, some of us do work with contracts. The reason for a contract is to show commitment that you as an employer want to retain that talent so that that talent doesn't go elsewhere. I think we could probably all agree in this room, at least we should, that Jenny is talent. She has decades of experience that nobody in this room, in communities even like Walla Walla and Tri-Cities, struggle to meet or match. So the goal with a contract is to retain that talent so that it doesn't work for someone else. We all want to see Dayton move forward. We all want to see Columbia County thrive. Jenny has done that. And it is only with cohesion that we can achieve that. So I think everyone in this room agrees that moving Dayton forward has to be the priority. And from someone who's going to be alive in the next 80 years, I want to see what Dayton is going to be then, because I know what Dayton was in the past and it was amazing. I think it's amazing now. And I think with the right people like Jenny at the helm, it can be even better than it is today. And I know that. The goal with a contract would be to guarantee that future instead of living in obscurity. Like we don't know what's going to happen. We lock her in, we keep her so that she doesn't do all this amazing work for someone else. Thank you.
Any more comments in the room? Yeah, go ahead.
Gene Warren, lifetime member of here, and I was on the board here for 12 years. I didn't know that Jenny didn't have a contract the whole time. We reviewed her annually and, you know, made adjustments in her pay, with regard to the evaluation, which I know you guys did. So, you know, it was kind of a shock to me, but I mean, it's your guys' decision to do it. These guys got elected. The negativity that's coming here from both sides of this is absolutely ridiculous because it serves nothing to get us back on the right track. I mean, I've heard too many things from all of you and, you know, spending 12 years on this board, it's about almost a quarter or 20% of the whole life of this port. And I came here to talk about something positive that I know that the commissioners are looking at. And it's a step that, you know, I just mentioned to Jenny, we haven't had people like this since we did Blue Mountain Station. And, you know, I really, and Vicky Zoller, I mean, that was ridiculous what she just said as far as getting on people. Vicky, please use some, you know, they should have cut you off right there. And you certainly cut me off because that's all I have to say.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, public comment period is now over. We will get right into our agenda items, starting with administrative items. We'll begin by approving the minutes. Have the commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any questions, changes, or corrections that you can think of?
I didn't see any.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the minutes. If there's not any further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote on that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. Moving on, review monthly budget report and signing of the vouchers. Any questions on this month's vouchers or budget report? Yes, I did. Jenny, did you have anything you needed to tell us about the budget or the vouchers?
on the voucher report, there is a giant check at the bottom, Blue Mountain Telecommunications, that was not on the version that was sent to you via email. That's for the Blue Mountain Telecommunications Services, the broadband company. And we got a late invoice and wanted to get it paid, so that's one addition. I don't think there's really anything else unusual on here unless you have questions about it. No unusual expenses.
Any questions from the other commissioners?
I don't.
Approve the big bills.
We need to sign the voucher sheet.
If you sign it, that's your approval. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, leases. Do we have any leases this month?
Yeah, we have two leases. One is with the tenant that I mentioned last month, the new tenant
Mhm.
at the Cameron Street Co-working, all on the table wellness. So we went ahead and let her move in March 1st, as we discussed last month. And so this is the lease. It's a business owned by Susan Castor. Oh, here, I won't get past the whole thing, sorry. That's me. There you go. And the second is just it's a renewal with Rad Rubenser Driving School, who rents the room right on the other side of the wall. I will let you know that I did speak to them about their plans for the future, because I feel like this meeting room is too small and it would be really nice if we could enlarge it. But it's not like I wanna kick them out, so
Right.
I just mentioned to them if they ever have a desire to find another space that we would probably just take theirs over and not lease it out again. But this is a renewal or this is a new lease for 2 years? 2 years. And we did raise their rent 3%.
Okay.
Anybody else think this is a yeah. Great.
Okay, the May meeting date, what do we have about that?
My stepson is graduating from college with his PhD, and it's on a Thursday, May 9th. So I need to fly to Colorado on the 8th, which is our meeting date. So would you mind moving it to Tuesday, the 7th?
I don't have issue with that.
Okay.
May 7th?
May seventh, a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday.
Yeah, same
You,
time.
you okay with that?
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Well, you better say yes after that speech.
Yeah, that's
Jenny?
fine.
I can't believe it's a Thursday.
Congratulations to your son.
Thank you. It's neuroscience. Isn't that exciting? Yeah,
I'm good.
okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Very much. Yeah. I just couldn't believe a graduation would be on a Thursday of all things, but
Don't they
I
usually,
may-
if it's big, like separated or?
I have no idea. PhD is a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so, no.
They may have the teams in. But,
I don't know. A whole bunch of us are flying down there.
yeah.
So,
No, I mean, I may have the teams in.
oh, you may have to.
That
Oh,
meeting,
okay.
So,
Okay.
7th is fine.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
Okay, moving on, update on port assets, Rock Hill Industrial Park.
We had some overhead door issues at Rock Hill or at Dayton Tractor, which it seems to be the many of the, we had to work on them on Dave's building last month. I think a lot of these overhead doors from the original buildings are starting to wear out, so we're gonna replace 2 of them. And then we're still working on the LED lighting upgrade idea. I have a better idea of cost now. It kind of depends on the building and the age of the fixtures, whether or not they're already fluorescent or if we've got some old, those big old sodium lights, like the old wall lights. So if they're super inefficient, it's a pretty amazing deal where the incentive program pays almost 90%. So like the USDA building, I think the cost to us would have been about $1,800 to do the whole building. Dayton Tractors, where we've already done an upgrade to better fluorescence once, is less, it's about 45%, that Pacific Power, the incentive payment would pay. So I'm still waiting to get all of them. We had the gentleman come and analyze all of the buildings. And, so it's a pretty awesome thing. I think the power companies they really need they need efficiency. They're having a hard time providing enough power for the demand, so they really need to. That's why they're doing it, because they need to upgrade. They need to reduce people's power usage. So as soon as I have a better overall cost estimate, then I'll come back with kind of a plan for how we'll get it done. I did have budgeted in our capital facilities plan to do lighting upgrades, so it's already there. So it's kind of a matter of figuring out what we can afford at what time. And the way it works is that we would pay the entire cost of the, for the most part of the upgrade, and then we get the incentive payment back. So it's kind of a reimbursement. Yeah. And let's see, yeah, I think that's it on the industrial park, nothing else. We did contact Barker about grading and we're on their schedule for spring, but they just haven't come yet, so.
Right. Okay, Lions Ferry Marina.
Okay, so the annual management plan part 2 that we have to submit to the Corps of Engineers is due April 1st. So Tracy has been working on that for the most part with Joanne. Joanne's on the screen there. And that's just the second part of the extensive reporting we have to do. We have to submit water test reports. We have to renew our sanitary sewer permit, which we have to have meters on all the lift stations and monitor the sewage that is being produced. And a whole host of other things, all the finances, insurance, all kinds of things. So that's what we're working on right now.
Okay.
And then as far as the RCO grant process, that application is due May 1st. So I do not have a resolution for you to consider this month. I wanted to focus on the malt this month, and then next month we'll focus on the next one. And the recreation plan that I've been talking about, Dina from the county has already got most of the adjustments made to that plan. The updates, there was one other entity, because it's city, port, county, and Starbuck. But I think she wanted to talk to the new pool district, because that's definitely a recreation related item, and make sure they were included in the plan, because they might want to apply to RCO in the future as well. So she was gonna check on that and make sure it's in the plan before we submit it to the RCO. And we have an authorized plan in place, so we can still apply, but ours expires in December. So we just want to make sure that it's, because anybody in the community that applies to the RCO has to have an approved plan. So that's why I'm making sure it's up to date.
Okay. And that's next month, we'll talk about,
The marina,
The marina,
yeah,
okay.
and I will have a resolution in front of you authorizing us to apply
okay,
for those funds. And Joanne and I have already talked about match, you know, I told you that the business is willing to put in matching funds.
Mhm.
So we will have a plan and,
Yeah, I'm really interested to see the bottom line, what that's gonna look like. Had a great conversation with Wally and Joanne. Uh, here recently, so
good,
pretty interested in that.
good. Thank you.
Okay, if that's all for the marina, we'll go into Blue Mountain Station.
Okay. So, I think you all remember Phil Newman. I think Mike Spring was not here the last time you were here, so I don't know if you've met Mike or not.
I think we met.
So we have been working frantically, I can say with confidence, to prepare to apply to CURB for funds. And so Phil is going to give you a short presentation on his malt company. Then I will give a short presentation on the CURB grant and how it affects the port's finances. And then Jill's gonna talk a little bit about the grain cluster portion.
Okay.
And then the goal is to get to, we have to have an approved resolution from the governing body in order to apply. So that is what we're aiming to get done today. So Phil, I will pull up your presentation.
Great, thank you.
Floor is yours.
Let's see, let me get the right presentation up here.
Yeah, do you mind if I stand up here?
Here's for his slides, so I gotta open the right one here.
Thanks.
Tracy, maybe we can scoot back a little.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Hi,
yeah. Go ahead.
everybody. Yeah, it's nice to be back here. After, geez, a bit over a year of working together with Jenny and, with authorization from the commission. At that point, to get moving on a feasibility study. So
Just a minute.
the idea back then, the pitch to Jenny originally was like, hey, Mainstem needs a solid foundation for its future. We've been contracting out our malt production for too long. We've been sending grain out of the area, from this area, out of the area for too long. And the ground is shaky. And so what about if we built a malt house in the Blue Mountain Station framework as part of an expanded Blue Mountain Station that included grains as a value add?
That my starting the presentation before I shared the screen did not work. Very
Right.
sorry. There we go.
We didn't-
Now I think I can start the presentation.
We didn't lose any time. So my hope with this presentation is I really didn't get a chance when we were kicking off the piece, or when you all approved, when the commission approved the moving forward with the feasibility study, to talk a bit about kind of where the company's coming from and where I'm trying to take it. But we'll get into that now. Most of the photography is local photography that I've taken over the years. Jenny, if you could advance.
Oh, it's not working? Okay.
All right, so basically, I just want to give you, most people, I would say, don't know exactly what malt is, so we'll walk through that a bit. We'll talk about sort of the value proposition, both the problem and the solution of maltsters of the scale that we're talking about with Mainstem. Talk about Mainstem's traction in the marketplace, our team, and how we're approaching this expansion, this establishment of our own capacity in Columbia County. So the malting process, we have a little bit cut off here, but not a huge deal. It's basically, it's the process of converting raw grain into something that can be fermented, like a simpler form of sugar. Basically, if you gave yeast that's meant for fermentation, for beer or for any kind of alcohol really, and fed it grain, it would just, the yeast would die. So it needs something a little bit more digestible, more fermentable. So the process is roughly a week long for barley, which is the most common form of malt. Barley malt is the most common form of malt. Steeping, which is like about 2 days in hydration, soaking and air rest, a series of those. And then you have germination, which is basically like
the early, very early stages of a grain or, a plant's life. And, there's a bunch of things going on in there and a whole bunch of starches being snipped up into smaller chain sugars and then that goes on for maybe 4 or 5 days and then kilning is a day where the moisture's dried out of the grain and it's the malt at that point, finished malt is now shelf stable and depending on how much temperature and time the killing process took, you end up with different flavors in your malt. Well, and I should also say, yeah, the end result of malt is, people, brewers are using it for beer and then, also single malt whiskey or whiskey in general is a common source or a common user of malt, which is basically like distilled beer at that point. The problem really is that, in my mind, is that most malt that's being sold to brewers and distillers is a global commodity. It's, I'd say it's attractively economical, so brewers aren't complaining about the price, and it's a pretty acceptable, like, uniform quality, that they can, kind of know what they're getting, before they even buy it, but it's really not very exciting it's not like screaming innovation or anything, or like a sense of place or anything like that. It's just a source of sugar. And really where you see a breakdown is where like consumers are wanting more local and more sustainable and more like identity preserved things. They want to know where their food's coming from, where their beverages are coming from. And really this, industrial malt supply can't supply that. Okay, but big part of the solution here, there's smaller scale, local to regional maltsters, craft maltsters that are establishing around the country and to a larger extent around the world that are trying to relocalize these malt supply chains. Malt used to be made in towns like Dayton, and so industrialization, globalization, prohibition, things like that resulted in those kinds of processing, leaving these communities, but folks like Mainstem and other folks, Craft Maltsters Guild. I'm also a board member on this industry association. These kind of folks are trying to bring it back to local communities, full supply chain. So next slide. Our traction as a company, we've been in this since 2015, really. 2016 was our first crop production year where we were going out in specialty crop contracting with farmers in Walla Walla Valley and Northeast Oregon, Athena at that point. It's since grown, and I'll get back into that with a map of our farms that we've worked with. But basically since day one, everyone's been, family farms, growing dry land in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. Everyone's Salmon Safe certified, which is like a more conventional leaning production system or certification protocol. But focuses on water quality and fish habitat and stuff like that. Our malting to date, I mentioned, is not like we haven't had our own facility. So we've been buying grain, we've been getting it malted at one of 3 different third-party processing facilities, and then established craft maltsters in the Northwest, and then we've been managing the freight and the sales and the distribution to customers around the country, but with a focus on the Pacific Northwest and Alaska.
Oops.
In terms of accounts, yeah, you can go on our website and look at all the map of all the different customers we've worked with. There's a few that came in over the past couple weeks, but it's now around 80 accounts that we've done business with over time, by and large, and some very big names. Both, I'd say most of our volume of malt has gone to single malt whiskey distillers, and then most of the customers, like the largest number of accounts is craft brewers of various sizes. But basically brewers and distillers they're interested in our general conservation ethic, our support of family farms, our transparency, and generally speaking, a big vision for what is possible in the space, such as building the kind of facility we're talking about here and creating new partnerships that have never been aligned before. And next slide. In terms of the production side, so going upstream to farms, we've had the pleasure of working with 8 farms so far in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. Most of the grain that we've purchased has come from Southeast Washington and Northeast Oregon, and including one of Columbia County's local farms, Warren Farms. Several of the family members are here today. And yeah, I'd say just to be clear, our intent is to continue working with farms as close to this area as possible. Next slide. In terms of numbers and volumes, we've done $2.2 million in malt sales revenue to date over the period of 2017 to the end of last year. It's about 3.1 million pounds of malt. And then once you know, there are losses from the farm gate to cleaning to finished malt, but it's roughly 25% of what you know, it ends up being 75% of what we buy at the farm gate, which has been about 4.2 million pounds of grain. So we're small, but not that small, and certainly like big enough to imagine you know, a nice growth curve in future years. We're a small team though, really full-time. This is myself and Heather, our COO, standing in front of the facility, the granary and the kiln and the germination area of the Montana Craft Malt facility in Butte, Montana, where we've done quite a bit of business on a toll malting or contract malting basis. We have my wife and business partner Alyssa Martinez Newman, who I co-founded the business with back in 2015, and then and has been instrumental at various stages. Though this is not her full-time job. And then we have hired reps in the past, sales reps, who are by and large industry professionals that have you know, day jobs working for breweries and distilleries, and a lot of you know, street cred in the community that are able to help us sell malt. And so Aaron's one of them. If you're looking for like a sign that MainStem can grow given the right resources, this is really it. So in 2020, well, coming out of lockdown, we had an opportunity to move our production to Butte, Montana. Montana Craft Malt had just launched a facility into the pandemic. They were scared about sales and having way too much capacity, 10,000 metric tons. That they needed to figure out what to do with. And so we came in and established a really nice 2-year arrangement to do quite a bit of malting and sell as much as we could through them. But through that time, so we at the beginning simplified our product line. The whole deal cut our cost of goods sold by 50% roughly. And then we were able to, with that, double our revenue in less than 2 years. To not quite $1 million, but getting quite close. And then, yeah, for a number of reasons, this was not a sustainable situation for us, long-term. And, it became pretty clear that by the end of 2022, that 2023 needed to be a year where we pivot to, back to trying to get our own facility off the ground. And that's where we reached out to Jenny. Priority wise, with our expansion, you know, we want to have our own capacity. We need the infrastructure to like really build business on. This is not like a get rich quick, you know, cutting a fat hog kind of industry to be in. Margins really matter. If you have any instability in your supply chain, you can shake off business rather quickly. Going year to year and lose customers and also lose, you know, grower support too. So we really want to be able to build on our own infrastructure, both on the upstream side with growers and with customers. We want to target real like durable malt sales. Don't want to be chasing a lot of the business year, you know, order by order. We really want to focus what this plant will be best suited for, which is specialized production and filling niches that current currently aren't being met. We want to be focusing the plant ideally 75% of it on multi-year projects with what I would consider like partnership grade accounts that have the ability to like stand this business, to really stand this business up in the new facility. And then, you know, the balance being very, very pleased to work with smaller brewers who can't kind of commit that much to you know, supporting production at a facility like this. And then, yeah, generally speaking, a facility like this brings a lot of attention from a lot of different places. This facility will attract interest from around the world, I have no doubt. And so we're really excited to just spin that expanded influence into new forms of business traction in a bunch of different ways. Over the past year, it's been a very good year in terms of hitting milestones that will change, that have already changed the game for our business and have allowed us to break out of sort of a series of short-term troubleshooting or like firefighting efforts, and more to be looking, you know, years down the road at what we want to build and how we need to be acting, or things that we need to be doing now to shore up that future. So really, the feasibility study, huge. Having that completed opens up a lot of, it answers a lot of questions for funders of all sorts, especially public funders. And it opens up great funding opportunities for, you know, to help stand up a business like this in Dayton. We purchased a malting system at the end of last year, or at least started paying for a malting system. We secured it through the rest of this year with our first payment. Yeah, we got less than half. Got it for less than half price out of a liquidation in Ohio. It's currently sitting in Ohio. And waiting to waiting to be shipped here as soon as it can. And then we also were awarded a big grant from the USDA for organic malt market development. And basically, there was we have 3 years of funding, up to 3 years of funding to support market development. Specifically focused on organic and growing the market share for organic malt. But you know, this is and we got this grant because it's super challenging problem to solve, and a plant of this size, or like you know, a company that's focused on certifications and doing more sustainable malt. We're, I think, really uniquely, USDA thought we were uniquely positioned to make progress here. I want to be clear, this does not mean we have a, you know, we don't have a tie to being 100% organic in our malting facility. I think, you know, it'll be some percentage of the facility. And if I had to guess, I think, you know, getting to maybe 20 or 25% of the facility being organic might be a realistic expectation in any, you know, near-term solution or scenario. In terms of our kind of the scope of the facility we're talking about here, budget, and we'll get into timeline, I think the next slide, but we're talking about an 11,000 square foot building. Well, I should say we have engaged an architect design firm out of Portland who has been, had some very recent experience or ongoing experience with a mill expansion. That's of particular interest to us. We really appreciate their work. Urban Patterns is the name. They have been helping us in very short order answer a bunch of questions that would be required that have been required to answer for our or the port's what we hope will be an application for funding through the curb board next week. But we're now looking at an 11,000 square foot building, would have some bulk storage for both grain and malt. It would be sourcing local as much as possible, and then also expanding into Washington, Oregon, Idaho, like a regional sourcing framework as is appropriate to keep the facility supplied with reliable and interesting grain. And we would be still selling in a similar market, mostly West Coast and Alaska. And we would be able to produce about 3.3 million pounds of malt per year. And that would support about 1,000 acres of specialty crop contracts with farms. And job creation wise, we're looking at about 7 FTE by 2027 is the current estimation. And in general, this is a size plant that's not like, it's not what a company like ours would hang its hat on long term. Really, like the goal, the dream would be get something like this, something this size up and running, make it, cash flow. And ideally get to a point relatively quickly where we feel like we're gonna outgrow this thing and need to do maybe a 5x or a 10x expansion and really build the sort of the next tier of malt processing capacity in the Northwest. And budget, go back real quick, so,
Sorry.
no, that's all
You took
good.
your nod wrong.
No, personal nod. All right, so budget wise, we're looking at kind of like a facility itself cost of something around $11 million. And then with, between contingency, working capital, a bunch of soft cost planning, things like that, we will be maybe around $4 million. So if you think $15 million for full project costs to get this thing going, that's about what we're talking at this point. I mean, those are changing I'd say by the day right now, but the goal is really has been over the past couple of weeks, get things shored up enough that we feel comfortable about what we would submit to the Community Economic Revitalization Board. And then these things are going to get sharper, hopefully not grow too much without real good reason, but definitely get sharper over the next months. Timeline wise, I would preface this by saying that both Jenny and I would love to make it work quicker, and Urban Patterns wants to give us the most conservative timeline that they feel like is very doable, which is great. And so we're looking at design and permitting starting in May and going through November, which would set us up for estimating and bidding from December to June of 2025. And then construction taking place over, in this case, a year from July 2025 to June of 2026. And there's some looking through the Gantt chart, there is quite a bit of wiggle room in there, and if we can move quickly, and I think we certainly want to be, if we could be online by the end of 2025, that would be very nice. And so there's definitely some places where we can outperform and keep this moving on a quicker track. So this is the current malting system that's sitting in Ohio right now. And it's really beautiful. Big stainless drums. These things are take care of both the germination and the kilning phase of the malting process. And not pictured as a big steep tank that's looks probably like Commissioner Springs fermentation tanks that are like standing cylinders with a cone on the bottom. So a big one like that steeps and then transfers every 2 days a load of chitted grain into one of these drums for germination and kilning. And on that note, that's all I have for you. I want you to know that we're not coming into this with like a whole lot in the way of preconceived notions on how this has to happen. This has been so far a really constructive conversation in my mind with the Columbia County community via the port and via specifically Jenny, the person we have been working day to day with. I'm personally very excited to keep the conversation going, and the whole team would be really excited to have this project take hold and to be actually moving forward and breaking ground here. yeah, questions.
I had a question and it's, you got to a certain point where you've kind of outgrown your facility. You touched a little bit on that. So you get to that point. Now what is your plans? Are you gonna grow here? Or are you gonna pick up and go someplace else? In other words, is this a flash in the pan for us?
That was my question.
And that was my question. I wrote
Oh,
down.
sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder here.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, Gene said that's good problem to have, and so, no, I mean, the goal wouldn't be to, you know, grow here for a few years and abandon the facility and go, scale someplace else. I'd say, you know, I think this kind of facility is a great specialty malt producing facility, independent of where, you know, where a larger facility might be set up. If we can make this a success here and, the community of Dayton can support us in an expansion, it would be really nice to have those facilities, close together. And we're not talking like it would be an expanded footprint for sure, and a lot would have to do with, you know, what's happening at the Blue Mountain Station. Is there still room? Has this become like a fully grown out business park at that point? Like, are we talking 5 or 10 years down the line that we'd be, building this facility? So,
The reason why I'm asking
Yeah.
it is not just because I don't want to see you leave. It is really about when you plan your facility, oftentimes you're laying the groundwork for your next facility. And I don't mean the next facility someplace else, because if you're planning on staying, you have a tendency to put the infrastructure in to a certain degree for that expansion here, and that's what I'm really poking at.
yeah, and I mean, I think, the goal with the feasibility study was to try to figure out how to build more of an ecosystem that supported, businesses, this business in particular, and businesses that would be compatible with our business long-term. I think there are certain things like grain storage that make it, particularly compelling to, like, if we together invest in a granary that brings pretty large quantities of grain, specialty, identity preserved grains, in, stores them on site, something like that is something that is being considered, and that would make it easier to stay. In terms of like, this facility is pretty much gonna be, it's gonna be fully built out from the beginning, and then we're growing into it over several years, and then hopefully just running at that capacity for, and shifting what it does over time. We have an active thread, an active part of the conversation with Urban Patterns about like, yeah, what is it that we can do to make this, set up for scaling? And it's gonna be, we keep running into like, it's easier to think about this as, how do we design this to be the most efficient organism as it's, like in this fully built out state? And then what does a separate facility look like, to be honest with you? And the separate facility, the most likely kind of facility would be something like what is proposed in the, feasibility study, which ultimately gets up to, it would be like a 5x expansion, to get up to 10,000 metric tons.
Timeline, if this grant gets approved to submit, what's the timeline?
We submitted on Monday, and then her board meets in May. And this is the type of organization that usually it doesn't even make it to the board level unless they think they're gonna fund it. So we would be given approval for the money in May, and then we would have to meet the requirements of the granting organization. I don't know if you remember this from Blue Mountain Station, but we have to submit proof that we have the
Funds
private
available.
investment and, yeah, all the proof. So there's a proving timeline, but then really, once we get that done, I don't imagine that would be more than a couple of months, then we can start spending money and it's reimbursable. So.
Well, I
as-
saw the timeline up there, but I didn't.
Yeah, well, I think their timeline is 6 months too long, but that's just my opinion. I've never built a building this complicated, so that I could be wrong. It could be that his architects are right. I just thought we could be done by the end of 2025, but I like to get things done, so.
Let's,
Yeah.
let's do that.
But no, it's a quick turnaround on the grant answer though, just couple of months. I forgot to look up when the curb board meeting date was. Do you remember? I forgot to look it up.
The
I'll look it up.
Oh, the next one?
The one in May where they have the board meeting.
It's
I'll look it up.
Yeah, 15th or 18th, somewhere. Yeah, anyways. We are also sitting on, as of, yesterday, I think, a letter of intent from a funder, who says, it is their intent, non-binding, intent, to, by default fund the rest of the project. So contingent upon, this, being approved.
Yes,
by-
I have the letter.
So Jenny and Maidstone are sitting on that.
Once you install the equipment into the facility, does the port, do they get to keep that equipment?
Not his equipment he pays for. We keep the bill, anything that this project pays for, not just the 5 million, but their $5 million investment in it. So we keep the infrastructure in the building, and like if we pay for the grain storage tanks that are attached to the building, we retain ownership of all of that. But the equipment that he's already purchased, we will not retain, no. That would be.
Yeah, yeah, like Jenny says, yeah, we've been trying to, build the budget so that the port maintains, like to get $5 million from Community Economic Revitalization Board, we need to have, it's basically you need at least $10 million, that's going into the project, itself, like the physical infrastructure, and then the port has to have, the port would have, 5 million of that 10 million, port would have 5 million invested in something that gets leased back to Maidstone. Maidstone would have $5 million of stuff that's, just going into the building, equipment wise. And then, and then everything else, working capital, inventory, all that is on top of it. That would be the responsibility of Maidstone.
What percent of your current clients meet that profile for your durable clients that, the dream clients?
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, historically, it's been, anywhere between, I would say 65 to, 85. Yeah, so we've been operating like that is at in our highest volume in 2022, we were at about 500 tons. So about a third of what this facility would be with those kind of ratios. And the idea would just to be build a deeper book of business with those types of accounts. There are a number of them that are already we feel comfortable that if we can bring the value proposition of a really interesting facility in a great community that's supporting the kind of agriculture that they want to support, and being very transparent and just we can do this well. I think, we'll have no problem earning their business.
You've had plenty of practice.
Yeah, I mean,
In that range.
We've been in the market for a while. There have been a number of times where our customers have been really hopeful that we'll build our own facility, and I have no doubt we've the fact that we couldn't build that we haven't been able to build a facility in the past, largely due to lack of financing, has stunted the growth.
Okay.
So
The 7 full-time employees that you're anticipating, are those in addition to current employees? Or does that include current?
that would be all of our full-time staff, yeah, and then including, right now it's two full-time employees,
Okay.
myself, Heather. And Heather's currently remote, but that position would have to be filled
Okay.
locally.
And one more question.
Yeah.
A little bit out there, but how high do you have to heat the water for processing?
It's a good question. Water for the most part is just room temperature is fine. If
So
it's
you're not-
super cold, usually you have to put it in a conditioning tank or something and warm it up a bit. But yeah, ambient
Okay,
is fine. The real energy intensive part is the kilning. and that's not heating water, it's heating wet grain, which is, I guess, kind of heating water, but, that's, gonna be powered by, natural gas, or sorry, propane. Would be usually natural gas, but Dayton doesn't have natural gas, so we'd be doing liquid propane. We've looked into doing, the feasibility study looked into doing electric, but we have such an irregular, energy. That we peak only, set only 3 times a week, so we end up paying, an unfair multiplier, on our power for that reason, so.
If you were to locate in Columbia County, is there a reason you consider this area ideal?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, it's in some of the best. It's in some of the best malting barley country that doesn't get a lot of attention from the big malt houses, I think. Most of the big malt house contracts, Great Western is our big malt house competition, between Vancouver, Washington and Pocatello, Idaho. They're sourcing off the Palouse, by and large, and, for their sourcing in this area. And so, yeah, we'd be a little bit further south out of their, the heart of their production area, but still very good grain. Okay, so grain quality and just like abundance is very attractive. I'd say the town of Dayton itself is like a mixed bag in terms of talent recruitment. It's like, for the right kind of person, it's a really attractive thing to be able to have a stable job in a small town. And I hope we can grow that kind of dynamic with the community here, with the port looking to, keep talent, skilled workforce, like very happy, living here and, working here. Gosh, personally, I think it's an easy. I think this is back to the grain side. I think it's some of the most like beautiful farmland that when people see where the grain comes from here, when we've like taken brewers and distillers out to the fields, it's like it's hard to compete. There's like really nothing like it. And so you look at where other malt houses source their grain from, and it's like it's not the same. So I think that would be a really big selling point.
Sure.
I think you also should acknowledge that our port did offer to do this feasibility study with you and that my knowledge of Curb has made a difference. Would you not agree?
Thank you, Jenny, for bringing that on me. Yeah, I think for us, definitely, we wouldn't have come to Jenny if it wasn't for the fact that the port had made progress on made very like clear progress on relocalization of food economies and like food systems and agricultural economies via the Blue Mountain Station. So it's like there's a history of investment, a very clear desire to see that vision grow. Like it doesn't, Blue Mountain Station is great. It's a sign of hope. It's very interesting, but it's like you see, there's a lot of room to grow. And so big question mark for us, like, all right, well, like how big is the dream? And it turns out, yeah, the dream's actually rather large. And I think if your conversation with Jenny is like, yeah, okay, this is a dream that could support, like, it's not gonna be crazy to stick a 11,000 square foot malt house in that field. I can, we all could see it, the future where like there's Blue Mountain Station, there's the 11,000 square foot malt house, there's like a granary, there's other businesses that are like bringing in attention from outside that is supporting all together this development. So yeah, okay, thank you. That's a good reason.
I have a question. Where do you source your water?
So it would be city water. We would be sourcing city water.
How much do you use?
So the steeping is the biggest requirement, and it's something like at full capacity, running full capacity is something like 5,000 gallons per day. I think we have to get through, we we need to sharpen those numbers. We just had a conversation, today to get closer to, what, you know, things like, wastewater pretreatment would cost and all that. Ultimately, yeah, it'll be, you know, on the other side, is wastewater, and so, yeah, we have to deal with that somehow.
So is the salmon safe certification, is that just for the effluent from the plant, or is it involve more?
It's actually focused on the growers, so, we can get a site certification, and it would be fun. It'd be a fun thing to do, I think, like a nice way to, yeah, it'll be a nice way to showcase our commitment to, you know, water
Can I
quality.
take a stab at that?
Gene is
So-
also.
Yeah, so we're a grower and we just went through the salmon safe certification, but it has to do with the insecticides, herbicides and fungicides you use. And there's certain ones that you can't use and you can't spray close to grapes. And, the other thing that Phil didn't tell is painting the story for this is the terroir of the area. And that's, you know, that's a wine term kind of, and you're a wine person, but, you know, I just showed a picture of the foothills here and we raised some really good barley here a few years ago, and it has the right amount of clumps and the right protein. And they went, you know, 11 to 12%. And so we can grow, with our precision and our stuff, we can, grow the kind of barley that they need, that the distilleries or craft malters like. But I mean, some of the stuff that they're looking at is more oriented probably towards the distilleries because it's a higher value market than wouldn't you say that, Phil?
It's certainly been our experience. Yeah, we'd love to see,
I mean, it's harder to sell, Mike over there on this deal about the product than it is a distillery, I think. And of course, the distilleries are a long process where they do it. As with this beer, he can do it every week, basically.
I had a question. Which types of grain are you gonna malt? Just barley, or are you gonna be able to malt wheat?
Yeah, I think, malting wheat is, yeah, it's definitely barley. Barley's always like, it is the highest volume, base malt. It's like, yeah, as you know,
Yeah.
most of what you use is gonna be barley. So that's just the case. We can't, change what brewers and distillers, are using. So mostly barley, at least to start. Things like wheat, spelt, oats, you know, other forms of grain that can produce interesting malts that brewers and distillers are excited to use. That would be a smaller percentage to start. I think when you look at a facility like this, though, long-term, it'd be really, the real like higher margin business is around, specialty products that aren't, base barley malts. And so the more we can be doing, like, even if it's barley malt, doing something like smoked barley malt, or like caramel barley malts, or, or if we can, or having, you know, types of grains that are just interesting and give unique flavors. And so we get away from selling, everything a brewer needs, to be using our malt to like, filling niches that are of particular value to them. So yeah.
Good. I'm excited about it.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, more questions for Phil? If not, should keep rolling.
Bill, thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing your plans and your dreams with us. Thank you for considering Columbia County and the port property for your business venture. Thank you for wanting to partner with us. It's gonna be exciting from here on. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. And, Bill@mainstemmalt.com if anyone has any questions. Always happy to chat.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll talk now about how it affects the port. So, background, we completed the grain cluster study, early 24. I sent it to you a couple months ago, and then the updated one this month. And so the study shows that the craft malt project is feasible, but the business case is not as strong if Main Stem Malt were to construct and own its own facility. So the study has two recommendations. that make it more viable. One would be to reduce the cost of the mall house, which Phil has worked on his side. And the second is for the Port of Columbia to build and own the building. So this was the recommendation from the consultants. So CURB is the Community Economic Revitalization Board. They have a program called the Committed Private Partner Program. Public entities like ports can apply for funds. The maximum is 5 million to construct facilities for the private sector, but the facility would be publicly owned. So the private sector must either create significant jobs, and theirs was 100 or more, or invest an equal to or greater amount in the public facility than the public entity. So we fit the second criteria. This project fits the second criteria. So this is how it works. We would apply to CURB for the $5 million package. Funding would pay for water, sewer, roads, power extension, all the extensions from the existing developed area into the field where the grain is grown, a small portion of it, to a new building site just east of building number 2 and adjacent to the rail siding, and a new approximately 11,000 square foot craft malt facility for the private partner MainStem Malt. So that money must be matched by MainStem Malt, so they have to contribute at least 5 million. And that is into the public project that we will own. So anybody wondering about whether the port benefits, the public benefits from this, heck yeah, more than most projects we do in this case. So this is CURB's estimated offer that they have provided to me, and that would be a $1.25 million grant and a $3.75 million 20-year 2% interest loan with a 3-year deferral. When we purchased the property at Blue Mountain Station, we used CURB money. That time we got a 20-year loan, 3-year deferral, no, 5-year deferral, 0 interest. That was awesome. So this one's 2%. So payments would not start until 2027. That's a rough number because that's like 3 years from now. But that timeline, the clock doesn't start until they've granted us the money. We've met the, actually, I don't know if the clock starts until the building is completed. I'm not sure when the clock starts. But anyway, that would be the earliest we would have to make a payment is 2027. 20% match is required, but because MainStem Malt is putting in so much money, that those funds count as the match, because it's not port funds. Or it could be port funds, but it would have to be cash. The debt payment to CURB is estimated to be $229,000 per year. So a portion of that will be the infrastructure and a portion of that is for the building, and the rent we would charge MainStem Malt would be based on the size of the building. Or the cost of the building. So that's how we would determine our rent, our lease rate to them. And the goal would be to give them a break during the 3-year deferral on rent. They'd still have to pay rent, but it wouldn't have to be as high, which gives them a leg up getting started, since we don't have to pay back the loan for 3 years, but we will be accruing interest. So, this is the relationship. We own the infrastructure in the building and we lease the building to MainStem Malt. Lease payments from MainStem Malt would be used towards our loan payments. MainStem Malt is prepared to sign a contingency agreement with the port that states as such, and that has to be signed and submitted with the grant application. I provided a copy of that to you in the packet. I have a letter in hand from MainStem Malt's financing company pledging to provide the funds required by MainStem Malt to meet CURB's private partner investment threshold. So that is great news. So how does this affect the port's finances? So the risk to the port is, how would we pay this debt if Phil wasn't able to stay in business and we ended up with a building? So the good news is we still have a building. The good news is we have no available space. So chances that we could rent a building are pretty high, but let's just say we can't. Our total debt right now, as of 12/31/23, this is all forms of debt, general obligation, revenue bonds, general obligation bonds, which are state loans, is just over $1 million. All but 425,000 of that will be paid off by 2027. It'll be gone. Currently, we make $176,000 a year in debt service payments. This has gone down from 2022. We were paying over 227,000 a year in debt service payments, but as they get paid off, the debt payment goes down. And none of that takes into account the new, fiber revenue that we have. So my point in sharing this with you is that it shows that even if we didn't have any rent revenue from Main Stem Malt, with existing monies, we could make a $230,000 a year payment. We don't want to.
Right.
But if we were in dire straits, we could still make that payment because we have done it in the past with our existing revenues. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That made me feel pretty good when I went through the numbers, and like I said, it doesn't even take into account the new revenue that's being generated. So that tells us we'd be able to make the payment.
Is that $150,000 per year revenue anticipated for 2027, or is that what we anticipate coming up this year and next year?
The fiber?
The 150,000, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're getting it right now. And I only budget at 120,000 a year, but it's already higher.
So it's
because-
feasible that it could be at least that and maybe.
Oh, probably more. Yeah. Right, unless Charter comes to town and everybody decides they want Charter instead of fast fiber from their local companies, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. Okay, so this is the long-term debt as of, this is out of our annual report, but this is year-end 2022. So it shows the total is 1.2 million, but I subtracted the 196,000 that we paid into 2023 from that 1.26 million to get that just over $1 million left in total debt. And the long-term debt that we have right now is from the Columbia County Transit Building that we built in 2009. Buying the Blue Mountain Station land and buildings from between 2009 and 2013. Well, and then buying building number 2 in 2018. And then the USDA Service Center remodel in 2015, which is now paid off. So that's what's reduced our debt payments. So just wanted to show you that right out of our annual report so you can see where I got the numbers.
Okay, thank you.
And so grant application is due on Monday. So in addition to the application itself, which includes project description, project schedule, budget, etc., we have to attach 3 years of financial documents, a 2024 budget, a balance sheet, debt schedule, evidence of public notification, copy of our meeting agenda, the resolution before you today asking for approval. A letter from our bond underwriter, so I'm working on that. We have to show what the true cost would be to borrow $5 million if it wasn't CURB funds. Basically, we're proving to CURB why we need their money because it's so expensive to borrow privately. Signed contingency agreement, evidence of local support, business plan that Phil is working on, greenhouse gas reduction certification, that's just, we have a policy. Job certification, which Phil has filled out, he has to meet wage requirements. With CURB, you have to pay higher than the median wage in Columbia County, so these will not be low paying jobs. Estimated local and state tax revenue, and a preliminary EZ1 environmental document that I'm working on right now. So we have our work cut out for us, but we're making progress. So there's just a test fit. Where's my, did I lose my stick? Phil, do you want to take the stick up and show them the building just a little bit? It's hard to see on the screen. My laser pointer won't work on the TV. So you can, show them the building and the tanks and.
Yeah, so basically, this is
rough.
This is rough, I would say, existing, or even just like as of this morning, this is changing a bit based on what Jenny has to say, but we're looking at trucks coming in, being able to unload in full truckload quantities like pup trailer and a pup grain haulers, unloading into one of 3 bins and or at least unloading into a buffer bin and then being cleaned and then put into one of 3 receiving bins. Then from the raw grain, you'd have from the raw grain bins, you load into steeping and then into one of these 3 germination kiln drums, go into a malt cleaning area and bagging, or going into bulk storage, and then there'd be some pallet racking as well. And then have a place for, this is like kind of the warehouse side where we'd have the ability to have a drive-in, come in, back up, and load up on palletized 50-pound bags of malt. That's kind of our smaller format than then our larger formats, which would be, and, there would be, right here, we'd have a bulk loadout for, pneumatic semis that will, load up with like, say, 24 tons of malt at a time. And then those go off to like, a silo, and get blown in pneumatically into a brewer or distiller's silo. So those are our preferred delivery formats because we sell 24 tons at a time, and there's no packaging. But certainly there's plenty of business to be done in that, drive-in deliveries.
And then, we've had a significant discussion today. I brought in Anderson Perry about pre-treatment. The waste would have to be pre-treated before it goes into the, city's sewer system.
Okay.
So that square out front is a pond. But we also have talked about irrigation, using it for irrigation, but I don't know exactly. It couldn't be used on food for human consumption unless it had been treated to residential water quality, as far as I understand, but I think it could be used on alfalfa. But then also there's a company in Walla Walla that has it's called a worm farm, and they have worms that eat I don't understand it all. Anyway, the worms help treat the water before it goes into the wastewater treatment system. Ryan here in the audience, I just met him today and he happens to operate a worm farm, so what are the chances? So anyway, that is kind of a big deal that we are figuring this out now, because that's gotta be done.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Phil.
Yeah, Jake, the one other thing about
Okay.
transportation flow.
Yeah, we are gonna change that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, Jenny's suggesting, maybe not the best to have trucks come out this way. In that case, it would be like where we would be able to have trucks come take a lot larger loop out and then come out here. So that would be one area, and then also preserving the possibility to have another truck and vehicle access to the highway at some point.
Yeah, because you know how we had talked about wanting to have an exit onto Highway 12. So actually I have Anderson Perry figuring out the cost of that separate from the malt facility, so we can keep these things separate, but keep in mind that I'd still like to make that happen. So this would probably change, because we really don't want the trucks going out Artisan Way. The turn is too sharp when it hits Harvest Drive, so it really needs to be a better loop. So the yellow X is where the building would go in relation to the current buildings at Blue Mountain Station. That makes sense? Okay, I think, let's see. Oh yeah, this is my last slide. So work on a related grain cluster will continue. So I'm gonna have Jill talk about that. We will have to seek other funds for additional infrastructure that may be needed for the grain cluster. But first, they've kind of got some work to do on that concept. So I will let Jill talk about it a little bit more, and maybe even Veronica. So let me close out of this one.
Yeah, it's my presentation. All of us.
All right, last one. This is it. We don't want to leave anything out while we have everybody's attention. All right, so now I have to share before I start, or it won't start. There we go, share.
So yeah, as part of this, and as you guys have seen in the feasibility study, there's sort of a discussion on building this out to sort of be a grain cluster. So not only having the craft malt facility, but also trying to bring in some new business that would also use the grain. So me and Jenny and Veronica have been meeting with the consultants on sort of an outreach plan to talk to growers about their interest in supplying the grain, but then also in recruiting businesses that would actually use the grain and want to locate here. So go ahead. So this is our marketing plan. We've discussed this with the consultant, and now it's in your feasibility study. So this is all directly from there. So the first step, and you can go into the next slide. The first step is to build a questionnaire. The consultant is going to do this in Qualtrics. So it's kind of a nice format because then we can just send out one questionnaire to the growers and the businesses. So it can kind of do some skip patterns. So like, are you a farmer, it'll ask you certain questions versus if you're a business, it'll ask you certain questions. If you just say no, it'll skip you down to the end because you just don't want to take the survey. So that's the first step. And the consultant's working on that right now, and we're gonna review it with her when it's done, that's the first step. So once that's done, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Once that's done, now we're gonna do some website outreach. You can go to the next slide. So we've discussed sort of putting a hub that people can go to learn more about the grain cluster and also just have a link to the survey. So we've discussed putting it, this is on the port website, just under the Blue Mountain Station, just kind of putting a little snippet at the bottom, just about the grain cluster, what's it about, and then putting the link to the survey. Go ahead. And then we've also discussed putting sort of a grain cluster tab on the actual Blue Mountain Station website, so people can get some more information. This might have, you know, a grain cluster and then a few more tabs about like, you know, the economic benefits or what it's like the plan and things like that. So we've discussed doing that. And then the next step would be also social media outreach. You can go to the next slide. This would be Instagram and Facebook from Blue Mountain Station and the port. I don't know if Veronica wants to talk a little bit.
Yeah, Mainstem Malt has already done a really good job of building brand awareness online. We're in the modern era, so being online is really important. It's a great way to connect, and more people want to feel personally connected to who they're purchasing from or who they're doing business with. So this is a great opportunity for Columbia County to get some good PR and build a great reputation state and nationally, because it's really cool and people want to feel connected. So a social campaign will help show the back end of what it takes to do this, highlight local farmers, and also in turn highlight Columbia County and bring more revenue here locally in a variety of different ways.
So yeah, we're working on that. Go to the next slide. This is just saying that we're gonna launch both that social media and then refer people back to the website so they can get more information there. Okay, and then the next thing is to just develop sort of a contact list of both grain value added businesses and growers to reach out to them directly via email, send them the survey link, and just say, hey, you know, if you're interested, please fill this out, gauge their interest. So you can move to the next slide. This is sort of the ones we've started. This is just from research and also just some tools that Commerce has given us. So we've just identified most of the businesses that were discussed in the feasibility study, like small pasta makers and wholesale bakeries, because they would use the grain. So that's the start of our list there. You can go to the next slide. And then the consultant has also been working with us to help us gather our contact list. So this is her contact list, and I've sort of been building it out too. So that's mostly like businesses and things like that. You can go to the next slide. And then the other idea, and this is from a consultant, because we were like, how do we get farmers? Like, can't just, how do you even know? So she talked about sort of going from these larger hubs like conservation districts, and grain co-ops and other producer groups and food hubs and things like that, that have contact lists, and going from them, sending them an email and a survey and telling them, hey, can you send this out to your larger distribution networks? So you can move to the next slide. So this just kind of shows we have that start of, you know, conservation districts, WSU extensions, you know, food coalitions, wheat grower associations, and yeah. Take the next slide. And then this is just in the feasibility study again, just to follow up and really kind of go from, oh, we have all these people interested, to really gauging, you know, here are some like few potential businesses that could locate in our grain cluster and a few regional growers that would supply grain to the grain cluster. And I think that's it.
Good question for you.
Oh, yeah.
So you're counting on mail and social media to get your contacts, is that where you're kind of going with it?
Yeah, email and.
To get future people like this gentleman here to come in and put their businesses there or frontage? I'm not sure I made the right connection, so I'm asking for a little clarity.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. I mean, that's kind of where our outreach is coming, but also from the website. That's why we kind of have the website too, because as we sort of, you know, get the interest out, we can have sort of some in-person networking and refer people
Okay,
to the.
you now get what I was looking for.
Yeah, refer people to the website so they can still take the survey, because that's where we're gonna gather the information of these are the people interested is from the survey. But that's why we want to have it on the website too. So it's not just, oh, we sent you an email with the survey or it's on
Okay.
social media.
I just was hoping that there would be some personal contact in there
Yeah.
because
Nothing beats shoe leather.
Yeah, the survey will direct them to being able to set up an additional meeting and have a face-to-face with them.
Yes.
So the goal is to go wherever they are, wherever they may be, whether that's email, social media, website, find them, gather their contact information for that primarily, and then be able to contact them directly and have that conversation.
And
start
the
that
directly is
relationship.
face to face.
Yes, if possible. I mean, ideally in
Okay.
person would be great, but I'm sure most of it will be phone calls, Zoom, and then
Yeah.
ideally face to face
It's
as
just,
well.
This could be, you
creating,
know,
creating the personal contacts
Yeah.
Yes,
will go a long ways to
Yeah.
this succeeding or not.
of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer that, like, another, like, Main Stem Malt has also offered like a wealth of contacts, in our own network, that like, you know, where we know, folks who may be interested. And so, yeah, as part of this process, we were like, interviewed and coughed it all up. So hopefully some like, hot leads will come out of something like that. And I imagine there's been similar work with other partners. So.
yeah. It's where the consultant comes in handy because they do have all those connections in other projects. Okay, that's it for the presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for all the information. I appreciate your presentation. Great job. I guess, you've given us this contingency agreement to look over. We don't need to take any action on that, but if we approve the resolution, that will authorize you essentially to
Yeah.
sign that, right?
Yep. I can't finish this application without the resolution, so
Right,
this is the
right.
this is the key document.
So this time we have in front of us a resolution number 2024-02, which is a resolution by the Port of Plenty Board of Commissioners authorizing submission of an application for a community economic revitalization board CURB loan in the approximate amount of $5 million for the craft malt committed partner project, the CURB project, and authorizing the board's executive director to enter into an agreement for such funding. We've heard the presentations. Do you have any questions or comments for?
No, you know, I look at it in a manner as, man, we're trying to invest in this community, and we don't have a lot of opportunities. No, there's not a lot of people, you know, banging down the doors. We don't have a long list, of people for that. So I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the interest. And yes, it's an investment and it's a large investment and it kind of, once we start, it'll tie us up into that. So we're committed to this endeavor, when that happens. So, and I'm okay with that, process. My thought on it is, if you have to stick your neck out on the line and you're investing in us. And so from what I'm seeing, from what I've read and the information that we've done over the last year, my opinion is that we invest in you, as well. So that's my thoughts on it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for our community, our county, and our agricultural base within our region here, so. I'm all in favor of it.
And it is,
Well, the work that you've all done. It takes a lot of work to put something like this together.
thank you.
Yeah, but it is not seeing it, that's 200 pages. Right, and that's just the pages here, and each one of those pages takes a certain amount of resources and hours to develop and gather and all of that information in there. Outstanding work, so I appreciate it from all parties.
I do as well. This is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. This is what ports are for, is to bring business to the area, to bring economic development, to bring people like Phil in and and grow our community and grow his business and work together. And so I'm thankful for all the time everybody's put into this and all the hard work. I look forward to a good partnership with you, and we're going forward in this. So,
Kurt sees the same way.
yeah.
Yep. We have a very good reputation with CURB, so I have high hopes.
So I guess I'd make a motion that we approve resolution 2024-02.
I will so move second that.
So we have a resolution or a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2024-02. Is there any further discussion? No, and that we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Once you get closer, but, hopefully we'll
We've got-
on the path, so.
We've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah.
Bring some house to pass around up front.
Sounds good.
That beer, wine, yeah, that balance.
Thank you.
Right. Look at all that.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to move on to the CWW Railroad now. How's your phrase?
Well, I tried to call the consultant and I wasn't, he hasn't called me back yet. I sent him more railroad documents this month. He asked for all of the documents from because he's got the val maps now, but then he wanted the assumption and agreement, the original deed, all the stuff we got in 1996. So I've got that scanned in and sent to him a week and a half or so ago. So, I just need to talk to him and see how it's going. I mean, as far as I know, it's going fine.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to have a better report, but he didn't get back to me yet, so.
Did he ever
Yeah.
give an estimate on how long this process for?
Well, he asked me, he did not give me an estimate, but he asked me if there was a big rush, and I said, just as long as we have it done in the first half of the year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think he had some health issues that he needed to address, so I just said as long as it was the first half of the year, so that would be by June, so.
Yeah.
I think I don't think he needs longer than that, but I will
Right.
certainly keep you updated if anything changes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Cold Spring Lane.
Yeah, and this one, we don't have to talk about it a lot, but it just I became aware and I did not know that Cold Spring Lane in Columbia County is not a county road. And apparently the port owns the road from Highway 12, past the railroad track. And then there's a whole bunch of private owners on the backside. So that was a very big surprise to me. I have no, Highway 12 access in my possession. I don't know when it became, I don't know when it was put in. I don't know. So I've got the planning department doing some research for me because who's maintaining it? Are we responsible?
All the landowners, I live on Cold Springs, and all the landowners have to pay for grading and gravel being brought in almost every other year.
And do you maintain the ports portion?
Yes, we do, all the way up to Highway 12.
Okay, and do you have an agreement with the railroad to cross the track?
No.
Okay. I would prepare for a letter from the railroad. It's because there needs to be crossing agreements. It's the railroad. It's not the port, it's the railroad. So,
Because how about all the other homes that are on that side to cross? the
yeah,
road?
they all need crossing agreements. Yeah, yeah. So this was, we had a request from someone to put in a new access road on the railroad right of way, and that's what brought this all up. I had no idea. We all thought it was a county road.
Wow.
So, it's not meant to be a scary statement. It just was a surprise we have no, I mean, somebody has to own that access from Highway 12. You have to have an access permit. We have access permits for this industrial park onto Highway 12.
Mhm.
Somebody has to own that access, so we gotta figure out
Right.
who owns that access. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention as something I'm trying to sort through.
Right. Okay, broadband, Dayton Community Broadband Project approved.
Okay, so I think I told you last month that we reopened the financial portion of it because we got some late bills from Pacific Core. We also have now discovered 2 homes that were missed on Baileysburg Lane that didn't get fiber, put, to the homes, and there's money left in the budget. So Curb said it was okay if we opened it back up, and we are gonna get those homes connected. And figure out, we're still sorting through the Pacific Power bills. One of them is valid, we know. The other one we're questioning because it's a pole replacement and the pole has not been replaced. We were given permission to hang fiber on it in July, so we're trying to figure out why we got that bill, so. Otherwise, it's going great. The number of customers continues to go up. We're up over 700 now, which is, I don't know, we're approaching 60% of the town. Getting close, so, and like I said earlier today, I budgeted 10,000 a month in user fees, and we're up to 14,000. So it is, and of course, a portion of that goes for maintenance, but not much.
Right.
Is there anybody still in your office?
I was gonna say.
Melissa's leaving. Is there anybody in there?
On the camera, so I can't see.
Sounds like you're in there.
I know, it's distracting. Okay, okay.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, that's, but anyway, that's all on that one. Otherwise, it's good. It's been going great. We get such positive responses. I know you had asked about surveying people. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I thought maybe we wait a while and.
Not a priority, we got
Yeah,
other
yeah,
stuff in the pan, so.
Yes, but we hear very positive comments from people about the service. They love the internet. Do any of you have it yet?
Yeah.
Okay, how is it?
It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Covered my satellite TV and everything
Yep,
streaming
yep.
now, no buffering, it's
Yeah.
great.
yeah. Yeah, so that's all on that one.
Okay, Tushy Valley Broadband.
So this one's getting very close to done. We did extend his contract. Gave him more time. I told you this because we have to add homes. We missed those 5 homes, and then there's the homes on the other side of the Rose Gulch Bridge. And then also for ground restoration, because it's too muddy and icky for him to really do a good
Right.
job of that. But he is very close to turning it on. They are splicing and are in the colo. And so regardless of those other newer locations we need to add, the original project portion, they'll be able to be calling for service from the ISPs very soon. So it's going well.
Good. And the rural broadband planning?
I don't have anything new on that. There's nothing has come up.
Okay, we'll go to Community and Economic Development Staff Reports.
So Jill and I attended the required ADO meeting and the WIDA meeting in Olympia last week or week before, I don't remember when it was. And it was good to be there, lots of good networking. The WIDA conference was focused on AI, believe it or not. I learned a little bit more about how people are using it in their day-to-day office work. It's a little frightening, but. And then Jill has we have done 2 classes that were very well attended with people interested in AI. So there's some interesting applications for businesses it's pretty complex what you can do with it. And then there was lots of good networking. Jill was in a group called Emerging Leaders that's part of WIDA. So she got to meet lots of people over there. And I'm the old timer there, so got to introduce her to a lot of people. The Walla Walla Destination Leadership Team is pulling together. This is where the Valley wants to wants to promote themselves as a Valley-wide organization. Both Belinda from the chamber and I are attending these and both have seats on the leadership table on the team. So that has been good to go to. I met with the owner of 2 of Dayton's convenience stores. I did not know that the one on this end of town that is going to be renamed Dayton Truck Stop and the one that's just been purchased called Dayton Gas are owned by the same company. They've got a good manager in there that's really trying to get things fixed up, especially the one at this end of town, and talked to her about the weeds and she said she was spraying them. So that was a good conversation. I went to the ChatGPT class that the port held, and then we had a quarterly connection, the event that was also very well attended. So our new networking events that we're gearing back up with since COVID are so far very well attended.
Good.
Better in the evening than in the morning, but it was a good move to make them in the evening. But I'll let Jill talk about it a little bit more. I was very impressed with the presentation on workforce generational, what did we call it? Multi-generational workforce, describing traditionalists, baby boomers, that would be me, Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z, that would be her. And very fascinating to see the different things that people value in their workplace. It's different from me than it is Jill. It's different perspective, and it's good for someone that thinks the way I do to kind of be, cause I'm from the generation where you just work, you work really hard and you grind your way to the top, and recognition matters, and I'm driven, and the other generation has different, they're more worried about work-life balance and things that if my generation doesn't value their different opinion, they're not gonna work for us. So we can be kind of stuck in our ways, but we need to embrace what's important to them in order to have workers, because it's difficult. So that was a really excellent presentation by WorkSource Walla Walla. And the SEDS meeting, I think you all got an email about the SEDS. This is something that SWEDA used to do for our community. It's the I get all my acronyms mixed up. It's the Economic Development Strategy. And I have kept the SEDS meeting going in the absence of Suida, producing that document. And just so we have our project list and we, keep getting input from the community. But the new director there is trying to pull the region back together to have a real regional SEDS. And I think that she mailed you each a copy. I think Tracy put it in your packets. And they asked, Mike, I guess you volunteered. I don't know, I had nothing to do with it, but they had reached out to you and
Yeah,
somehow he
yeah.
volunteered. Marty Hall was on it. Anyway, so we had our first meeting this week and they're gonna start doing more quarterly meetings and trying to have outreach here. So it's a good thing. So, we attended that and we'll see what comes out of it, I guess.
My challenges with Zoom.
Yeah, challenges with Zoom. That is all I have.
Okay.
Jill?
Yeah, so we hosted an AI class. One was today, one was last week. We had about 18 people in attendance in total. It was really an interesting class to hear about AI. It seems like a hot topic, so I've discussed with the speaker that we might do some more if people are interested. So yeah, that went really well. And then we had quarterly connections, which we had about 24 people in attendance. And I think it was just really interesting. The conversations that happened as the presentation was happening was really interesting because we had people from all different walks of life, like a millennial, a Gen Z, a boomer, so all these people was really interesting to hear how they work and how they, just the different things that they value. So that I thought it went really well. Continuing on digital equity work, I met with Starbucks School District and Goodwill to sort of understand where Columbia County's needs are, sort of digital equity and what assets we have for digital equity. I followed and supported some bills for ADO funding, and we ended up getting $696,000 in new funding for ADOs for 24-25 fiscal year, but they haven't announced how it will be distributed yet, so I don't know what the port will see as far as that funding goes.
If any.
Yeah. And then just a few more business interactions. This month, I helped a business set up their Google profile. We helped an auto glass company find a potential location in Dayton and just helped another business with some marketing needs. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on staff reports?
Didn't cover housing.
Not yet, we're still talking about staff reports.
Oh, okay.
No questions on that? Okay, let's go on to housing.
I don't have much to report. The company that Phil has hired, from his side to work on the site plan for the, malt facility also has done quite a bit of housing work. So I've talked to them briefly about what they might be able to help us with. We need to get past this application before I ask them again. And Jill did attend the WIDA housing, meeting today, something I usually go to, but she's been doing it. And one new legislative change this year is that the county's 0.09 funding can be used for workforce housing now. That is a new legislative change. Our county doesn't have very much 0.09 funding, but you never know if it might become helpful. And I think tell them what you told me about the difference in the poverty, was it the percentage of?
Yeah, so like for a lot of other legislative things, sort of like the multifamily tax credit and things like that, there's a limit to the AMI. So normally it's like 50% or less AMI, some go up to 80%. This one is interesting because it goes up to 120% AMI.
So it really feels more like workforce housing than low income housing, I guess is the point. Yeah. So, still working on it.
I wonder if, I've been driving by up to Tri-Cities quite a bit lately over the past month, and I always go the back way and go by Port Pasco when I do, and they've got that Osprey Point development going in there. I wonder if the Port Pasco, maybe a commissioner too, and maybe JMS Construction, who's the developer, would be willing to come in and talk to us and give us some pointers.
I could ask them. JMS,
JMS Construction, yeah, they're right there next.
are they building?
It doesn't look like they've actually started building yet.
Okay, I know that all the infrastructure was in, but not,
Right.
no homes yet,
Yeah,
huh?
no homes yet.
Okay,
But
I could sure ask. I know
if they
Randy very well.
Kind of hurdles we can anticipate or what kind of things they're doing to get this housing going and whatnot, so. And who knows, maybe even JMS would be interested in working with a small community like ours in this,
Maybe, we can hope,
we can hope.
cross your fingers.
Right. Okay,
I would like a point of personal privilege, if I may. Sure. I heard the comments this evening from our public, and I'm worried that you put us in legal jeopardy. You brought items out of executive session and then brought them to be public. There's an RCW 42.23070. And also an RCW 42.23.050. You also broke our own policy of our court, the bullying policy. And I believe you created the hostile work environment for many of, maybe all of our workers. I have some remedies. Some were suggested earlier. But our court attorney also offered her services to come and do some training. I would like to see that we possibly can go into executive session and get some training from our court attorney. So that we don't end up in legal jeopardy if we are all not already not in legal jeopardy and costing taxpayer dollars to defend the actions of yours. So that's my point of personal privilege.
thank you. At this time, and we're almost at the end of our meeting. I will go ahead and open up for our final public comment period. Please limit your comments at this time to 1 minute per person. Anybody in the room with a comment? It can be about anything we've talked about. Doesn't all gotta be about me. Okay, no public comment in the room. Any comments online?
Well, I'd like to take a shot. I'd like to congratulate you guys on what you're doing here in bringing businesses in. I think you've got a pretty good handle on it. And it's just impressive to watch the effort that's been put in and the possibility of having a viable business join this. So that's meant for everyone in here, not just 1 or 2 or 5. It's everybody. It takes all of us.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. My name is Grace Pearson. I'm recently transplanted here 3 years ago or so. And I just wanted to say that as someone who has attended quite a few court meetings since I moved here, specifically to watch processes like this go on. And I also would like to compliment you guys for working together so well, actually, despite maybe some bumps in the road. You know, I think it's maybe a growing pain, but a lot of the people who stood up and had so much to say don't regularly attend these court meetings, you know? And so they haven't seen the big picture of things. And I think that should be taken into consideration. You know, I think everybody has room for improvement. And I do think that your suggestion, Mr. Springs, is probably good. You know, and anytime you see any degree of dysfunction in a small group or a large group, it's good to address it and remedy it for the good of everyone, and especially for the good of Columbia County. You know, so that's just it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll have another comment here. Phil Newman, Mainstem Malt. Yeah, I guess I want to just share that it is pretty terrifying to be a business looking to establish someplace and see, like, just I guess the level of conflict that was like, coming out of the community that we want to establish in. But I also want to say that it's really encouraging to see how the room rallied around just the overall interest in our project and how it can be a force of greater good and cohesion in the community. And so, yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge those two those two dynamics and, yeah, I'm hopeful you all, find a way to, work together and that we can be a part of it.
Go ahead.
I have a quick question. I'm Chuck Bellany and I've lived here for 14 years now. And I was just wondering, can you give us an update on the status of the USDA meat packing plant that the Shones got approval to build on the port property?
Do you want me to answer?
Go ahead, please.
I have not heard from Michelle. The last I heard from her, she said she was still working on getting a plan together, but I haven't heard from her for I don't know, probably 6 weeks or a month or 6 weeks. And I asked the city and she still hasn't applied for any of the permits at the city. So I don't have anything to report. I don't have any forward progress to report. I was gonna look up here the last time that she contacted me, but the last I heard, she still wanted to move forward. That's the last I heard. That was about, that was actually in November is the last time I heard from her.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna respond to some of the previous comments that we've had and to you also, Mr. Springs. If you wanna have a meeting, you can talk to the attorney. I'm not opposed to that. I have no problem. You know, you can always learn something. You know, I'm not opposed to listen to what she has to say at all. That being said, I did not bring information that we discussed in our executive session or any confidential information into the public. Nor do I believe that I was bullying or harassing or creating a hostile work environment. My concerns were my own and I brought them up and I stand by my statements. As far as any of you that think I should resign for what I said, it's not gonna happen. You're stuck with me. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. So that being said, I stand by what I said and I'm here, so that's what we got. But I'd be more than happy to meet with the attorney and.
Okay, let's set up a meeting with her.
All right.
Well,
Is that gonna be for all of you or just?
No, that'll be for the entire commission.
Okay.
Yeah. That being said. It's 6:57 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.